And West Bend started when we purchased 18 acres of land in Forsyth County. Jack, my late husband, was very anxious to find something that he could do after work, be more of a gentleman farmer. He did enjoy planting things. Originally, we began planting fruit trees and blueberry bushes, and very soon then grapevines became part of his passion. We traveled a lot, and we traveled to areas in the world that produce wine and grow beautiful vineyard. We wanted to grow Chardonnay, Merlot, Riesling, because these were the grapes that produced the wine that we like to drink. In this part of the country, those grapes were not growing. We started planting a vineyard. I'm sure you must have seen the #1 designation on our first planting, which was rather experimental, and that started in 1972. From 1972, it was 1988 before we actually bonded the winery and started a commercial winery. The reason for that was that there was very little, well, not enthusiasm, but even acceptance for the fact that we were going to plant these French varietals in North Carolina. So we had to find out for ourselves that we could actually make it successful. We grew vineyards. We started with a couple of acres. That was 72. Takes 5 years for them to actually produce. By the early 80s, we were beginning to feel comfortable with the vineyards that we were growing here. They were producing fruit. We were selling to some Virginia wineries, which was very complimentary, because Virginia, being about 10 years in advance of us with their wine industry, was sending their winemakers to look at the quality of the fruit. So that is really the early beginnings of what is now West Bend Vineyards. At that time, it was still what we might consider a hobby, because until we actually sold some fruit, it was not a commercial enterprise. Slowly, we got comfortable with actually bonding a winery, which happened in 1988. So at West Bend, we did things the old-fashioned way, where we had the vineyard that was producing beautiful fruit before we actually had the commercial winery. And it's really the best way to do it. We had the luxury of time. We weren't pushing. There weren't any other wineries in this area, that's for sure, and very few in the state. I think there were about 10 at that time. Growing vinifera, the French varietals, was certainly not done commercially. So in 1988, we did bond our winery. We had to hire a winemaker, and we did that. We brought in Steve Shepard, who came to us from Pennsylvania. West Bend is in the west bend of the Yadkin River. We have vineyards right on the Yadkin River. In fact, the natural boundary between Forsyth County and Yadkin County is the Yadkin River, and we're sort of sitting in that little bulge. And that's why we wanted to call West Bend something indigenous to the soil. It wasn't very long before we realized that we could actually make very fine wine at West Bend. Actually, if you think about it, our vineyards were mature. By the time we started a commercial winery in 1988, most of the vines were already 10 years old, and we were continuing to plant. So a good mature vineyard, a good winemaker, you have a really good combination. So our wines were beginning to be nationally recognized. Robert Parker was very favorable about his comments toward West Bend wines. The Wine Spectator had nice things to say. We were winning important awards nationally, and this is very gratifying. we continued to plant and ended up with close to 60 acres of vineyard, and the wines were being accepted locally as well. And local people were beginning to be very aware that there was something happening in Forsyth County and in Yadkin County and in this Yadkin Valley. We did have the ability and the desire to get others to do what we were doing, and they would come in and ask questions about how do you start a winery, and we were happy to help them. When we started our winery, and when we opened to the public in 1990, there were very few wineries. Today, there are 80. Since 2000, which is when the growth really started, that's when we really saw a lot of increase in wineries being started across the state, and exceptionally and especially in the Yadkin Valley. You know, we're very proud of our past here at West Bend. History is important, but we're not so much about the history right now as we are about the present. It is a real challenge to stay where we are and to move forward into the future. We want to continue focusing on the excellence of our wines. Our vineyard continues. This year we have replanted many of our vines. Our vines are all very mature, and like people, sometimes they tend to go away, and we had to replant. That is a real commitment to the future. When you plant a grapevine into the ground, you're looking at least 5 years before you get anything back. So our commitment is to the future with our vineyard, with our winery. In 2004, we hired a new winemaker. Our wines have never been better. We are looking to the future. A winery is focused on the future. You buy barrels, you put wine in the barrels, they come out 3 years later. It's not quick gratification. You're in it for the commitment and for the long term. And West Bend is committed to the long term. Future is where we're focused. We've won national and international awards. I don't think the wines have ever been better than they are right now. We bring years of experience to what we do. If you looked at our vineyard manager, our winemaker, our people who work here, they bring years and years of experience to the wine business, which is excellence. And that is the focus that we have. The history is important, of course. The present is important, but the future is where the secret is. My dream for West Bend Vineyards is to be the best that we can be in the state of North Carolina. We were the first, and that's in the past. We want to remain the first as far as the quality of the wine, as far as the leadership of the wine. We want to move this North Carolina wine industry ahead so that we can have national recognition for well-produced, well-made wines. We hope that we can do that. That would really fulfill my dream. And along the way, we should have a little fun with a good glass of wine.